Hello everyone, Floppy Waffle 69 here, and welcome back to the channel. Hey guys, today we are going to be doing a full deep dive analysis look at these brand spanking new Tier 10 American light cruiser being in those ever so bold quotation marks, the Hawaii. Hawaii is brand new to the Steel Fleet event this Christmas here in 2025. She's going to cost you around 39,000 steel if you wish to purchase her outright. Again, you can factor in coupon and all that kind of jazz. And you also can pick her up in the Santa's gold containers, I believe. I don't think she's in the regular Santa Megas. I think she can only be obtained via the Santa gold container. So if you are lucky enough to get her in a Santa gold container, bravo to you, because that is exactly where I got mine. I actually rolled double sixes here, and I was able to pull this one out of my ass, along with the Aki. Like I said in my last video in the Bremen, I actually just flat out purchased the Bremen because that is the true highlight for me, at least in my opinion. But this is probably my second take. Like my next best option is obviously going to be the Hawaii, my third being the Valparaiso, and my fourth being the Aki. I'm not going to spend too much time on the I-5644 or I think it's called the Le Harvey or something like that, with the French secondary focus like Brest. Both those ships were labeled uncommon, so we are more often or not, or more likely going to see those ships put into the armory in some time or place, kind of like we saw with the Monmouth, or potentially, what is the other one? The Incheon, right? Personally, I would like to see the Le Harvey added into the armory for coal, but you know, we'll see what happens, what Wargaming decides to do with it. Anyways, though, the main focus or main highlight of the video today is the Hawaii, and whether or not this ship is worth it, how to play this ship, is it strong? Okay, this is basically what I can sum it up, okay? And I'm sure you guys have watched various other content creators' YouTube videos by now on the ship, and you realize that this ship is incredibly strong. But I do have some, controversial opinions about this ship, and I'm going to make sure to highlight each one of those later on in the video. But the first thing I do want to hit on, or I could bring to your attention, is that this ship is basically a amalgamation of an Alaska hull, which is already known for its kind of tankiness. We go ahead and bring the Austin turrets, which are these cute, ever adorable turrets. I guess you see these on the Joshua Humphreys too, maybe the super ship for the Americans. We put that all on an Alaska hull here, and then this ship also comes with a F key, which drastically alters the shell characteristics in the alternative firing mode, not only increasing your overall DPM, but it also is going to change your reload speed and all that. So yeah, basically just DPM. That's what you want to say. That's what the F key does. It just alters and changes the DPM of your ship. On a side note, though, when you have the F key proc, it basically turns into gearing shell velocity shells, which gearing shell velocity shells, as you know, are very, very floaty. And that carries over to this. And I believe your range goes down to like 12.4 kilometers. But you have an insane amount of guns with an insane amount of reload, and that's going to drastically make up for that. When you do not have your F key proc, so just the standard firing mode, you actually do have very comparable shell velocity to a lot of other cruisers in game, and I'll make sure to highlight which cruisers it's similar to in regards of your lead time. But what's insane about the Hawaii here is you actually have an 18.3 kilometer base range on this thing, which I find is just completely ludicrous, and I definitely don't think that should be the case. I understand you're only rocking 127 millimeter guns, but it doesn't matter to me because we have other ships like Smolensk with the 130s. We have other ships like the Colbert, which has the 127s. We have ships like the Austin 127s, and they don't exceed 16 kilometers. So to me, it's kind of mind-boggling that Wargaming went with this decision, but I don't really know. Maybe this is like the answer to, hey, I want to play light cruisers in 2025, 2026, and I'm sick and tired of getting nuked by enemy battleships, so here you go. Maybe that's what the answer is. I'm not 100% sure, but I digress. So a couple things I want to state right off the get-go here with the Hawaii. Do I think the ship is strong? Yes, I think it's ridiculously strong, and I do believe it is overpowered as of right now. I think there needs to be a couple more changes to her to bring her in the realms of World of Warships reality. What do I mean by World of Warships reality? I mean, like, let's look at other ships that play similar to this ship, and let's like balance it based upon that, not just having it on its own with an island. Like this brings me back to like pre what basically advanced firing training Smolensk with like 18 kilometers range is kind of what this thing is, reminds me of, right? And your non F key shell, so your standard firing mode shell velocity is so good that you can reliably hit your shots at these ranges. Okay, and I'll make sure to highlight that within the video too. So that's like my first thing about this ship. Two, this ship trades very little. Like basically, it gives up very little in order to gain so much potential DPM, and I'm not a big fan of that. I think the only two balancing features that Wargaming anticipated with this ship is it doesn't handle particularly well. But again, it really is not a concern if you're sitting behind an island where most likely you will be playing this thing anyways. So you basically avoid that one off. And it doesn't really have a citadel that much. Like it can be citadeled. I have citadeled personally. I don't have a problem citadeling this thing at those medium to longer ranges with plunging fire. But again, when you get closer, especially like against enemy cruisers, I mean, they're pretty much just going to get full pens or over penetrations on you. So I guess those are kind of the two balancing features of the ship. Definitely needs to be readdressed, in my opinion, along with other ships in this game. But yeah, this one is definitely, in my opinion, and that's coming from a cruiser main, someone that really loves cruisers and really is over there rooting for cruisers for people to play more cruisers, for cruisers to get, a little help nowadays. Yeah, and I'm saying this thing is blatantly overpowered. So it definitely needs some changes to be brought back into the realms of wargaming, World of Warships reality. So. But yeah, guys, this ship, I mean, it is super, super fun to play, but to play against, it is incredibly toxic. I think everyone, at least now, has experienced what it's like to play against this ship, and it's just not fun. Especially if you're caught within that 12.4 kilometer range with this sea of HE raining down upon you and you cannot see the damn thing, nor do you have the, I guess, loft of your shells to land and hit the Hawaii. Yeah, it's incredibly frustrating to play against. Not very fun. But again, if you're the one manning the helms of the Hawaii, fuck, this thing is a blast to play. And I can't recommend this ship enough on that alone. Okay? But what are some other things about the Hawaii that we're going to have to pay in mind or pay attention to? Your detectability is not very high. I guess that's another balancing feature that Wargaming, I guess, had. I mean, a full stealth build on this thing is going to rig you down to about 12.2. So for a light cruiser, we are definitely on the higher end of the detectability, screen, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, like her armor, she has a great armor scheme. I'm going to showcase that here in just a couple of minutes. But yeah, I mean, all in all, the package for playing her is a blast, and it's definitely worth the 39,000 steel. Is it worth more than the Bremen, in my opinion? No, I think the Bremen is the superior choice, but that's just my opinion. I think the Hawaii is going to be a very, very good damage farmer like the Bremen, but I think the Bremen is going to be able to do it not only if it wants to hide behind islands, but also in open ocean, where the Hawaii is basically sole dependent on like being really dominant, but getting into that F key range and hiding behind islands is where you're really going to get the most out of the ship. Now, this ship can and will open water gunboat too. You can do it, which is nice in a light cruiser for once. But it's like I said, the Bremen is just going to be doing it better in more scenarios and more maps. It's going to be more applicable. And I think that the Hawaii is just going to fall a little bit behind the Bremen in that regard. So that's why I'm going to recommend the Bremen more than the Hawaii. Another thing we have to keep in mind is that these are only 127 millimeter guns with 127 millimeter standard HE penetration. So what's that going to bring us down to? 21 millimeters of effective HE penetration. I'm not, for one, going to slot inertia fused high explosive on this ship because I think the fire chances is so good mixed with that DPM that you're going to neuter a massive strength of your ship, and I'm just not willing to do that on the Hawaii, so I'd highly recommend you do not do that as well. But anyways, guys, without further ado, actually, let's look at the ship. What makes her, click, and what's under the hood here, right? Starting with the armor scheme, excuse me. As you can see, this is an Alaska hull, a light cruiser with 27 millimeter nose, and a 27 millimeter ass. We have a deck armor of 36 millimeters, which is just ever so slightly underneath the penetrating capabilities of your airstrikes for like the Dutch. So it's going to be no problem going through that. But I do find the Ultra strikes with the defensive AA consumable proct is going to really struggle to land bombs on you compared to like the Prince Brown Orange or the Guten Lu. A little bit different scenario, but this is a very good counter in the anti-aircraft department, and I have no problems with this ship with its AA. I actually think its A is perfect for the ship. I will say this though, I don't take any AA skills because I think the skills need to be put in other captain skills to get the most out of this ship. If you so choose to do a max AA build on the Hawaii, let me know in the comments how it is working for you, because I can only imagine what this thing is going to be able to do and how many tiers of carriers it is going to farm, right? Looking at the Citadel, and again, we have that nasty Alaska Citadel, which is like basically under the waterline ever so slightly. Again, mixed with the armor scheme of having that 229 casemate. And then if you look at your upper belt, you are rocking about a 28 millimeter effective armor belt, which is again going to be able to ricochet decent amount of shells, especially those 381 millimeter guns. But yeah, again, this ship can get overmatched by 406s, but getting a frontal sit on the damn thing, I mean, I don't know. It's possible and plausible, but I really don't see it happening too reliably unless you're at longer ranges and you happen to have enough AP penetration mixed with the shell, like the angle of attack that it's going to be coming in down the nose. I really don't see it happening too often, if at all. So, moving into the survivability, we are clocking in at 74,700 HP with 13% torpedo belt reduction. 13%. Not very good for the size of the hull, but again, you do have access to hydroacoustic search if you so choose. Personally, I'm going to put defensive AA fire consumable because there's a lot of carriers going around right now and hybrids. Again, though, maybe after that dies down, after the holidays, maybe you want to go back to the hydroacoustic search, though. You might get a little bit more out of it during the games, right? Or more games, likely, right? To get more out of it. Now, one thing to keep in mind about this ship when it comes to like the overall survivability of the vessel is the HP. Obviously, the HP is incredibly high, and obviously still at tier 10, the Stalingrad takes the cake at 72,450. Right beneath that, you have the Puerto Rico at 71,650, and then lo and behold, you have the Hawaii. Again, a light cruiser with an Alaska hull. Here you go. It has the third most HP for tier 10 cruisers. Pretty crazy, right? Pretty crazy. And then, obviously, with the Citadel being underwater, kind of like the Puerto Rico, very tricky Citadel to hit. I mean, though I hit the Citadels more reliably with the whole, I hit the Citadel of the Hawaii more reliably than I do the Puerto Rico. It is nice to have all that HP for one, though. Again, moving it in the realms of a little bit on the strong side, right? That's already a massive pro in the survivability department. Damn it, there's the tree. A massive survivability department for the Hawaii, right? Which again, I understand because it's a Puerto Rico Alaska hull, but I feel like it could have been addressed a little bit better. Just my 2 cents. Okay, going into the artillery, we have 12 times 2 127 millimeter guns. The standard firing mode is going to have you shoot every 5.3 seconds. Again, that is an insane amount of guns, and there are, I think, 3 turrets on the ship that do turn 360 degrees. I think it's these 2 in the rear do turn 360 degrees, and I also think maybe one in the front somewhere here does as well. One thing to keep in mind is that you can't have all your guns on target firing at a given time because you do have some turrets like 1 and 2 here and 3 and 4 and 5, I think. Yeah, all these 6 turrets in the middle, they can only shoot via the side that you're shooting from. So keep that in mind. 180-degree turn time, again, is 5.2 seconds. Ridiculously fast, again, with a maximum range of 18.3, which is freaking ludicrous. I don't understand why they did that. I think that's way too high. To me, this ship does scream around 16 kilometers base, but again, I'm not a dev. I'm not part of the balancing department. I don't understand what the thought process here was, so they went with it. Okay, sure enough, that's what you're going to get. Going to the high explosive. Again, this is going to be a little bit different. Let me just go ahead and send my commander to the reserve because I'll show you. So you're going to get 1,800 base with a 10% fire chance on the standard firing mode. Again, with your 127 millimeter armor piercing, you're coming in at 2400 maximum damage with the armor piercing. Again, both shell velocities with your standard firing mode are 808 meters a second coming out of the barrel. Again, this is all going to change once we pop that F key. It's going to change our statistics of our ship. And I believe I can potentially show that to you here. If I press the F key, here's the changes you're going to see of the ship. First of all, your armor piercing damage is going to go down a little bit. Okay, that's one thing I wanted to point out. I'm assuming that they basically want you to be a full-time HE spammer and blah blah and so and so. Okay, you could still utilize the armor piercing on this thing. I've done it before, especially against cruisers, because like the Colbert having the highest AP DPM per tier 10, kind of the same vibe here, right? It's insane. Reload time is going to go down to 3 seconds. Maximum dispersion is going to go down as well. So basically you're turning in from like a light cruiser into like a destroyer levels of statistics. Again, your maximum range is coming down to 12.5 kilometers. HE damage is staying the same, but you do lose some fire chance. Now I want to point this out. If I'm reloading 2.3 seconds faster at 3 seconds, right, rather than the 5.3, coupled with a 6% fire chance, I'm still going to be able to set theoretically more fires on target. Okay, so don't let that confuse you either. But though I do want to point out, look at the 792 meters a second shell velocity. It definitely goes down. You have to lead the target a lot with these. You're basically gearing levels of floatiness of shells. And if you've played the gearing, you understand that the guns are really only good at close ranges, especially when you're getting into those DD knife fights. Same kind of vibe here, but now you get to the 12.5 kilometer range as your max. So kind of similar to the Atlanta. I mean, hell, even the Atlanta has more range than this, and that's a tier 7 when the Hawaii is in its alternative firing mode. So again, lead the target a lot. You might need to zoom out 1 or 2 clicks on your mouse. It might make that easier for you to lead the target. Okay, so that's the guns. Going into the AA, the AA is actually quite potent. I've already mentioned this, and you're going to see examples of the AA anti-aircraft going off in game. I mean, 505 damage for continuous, and then you have a bunch of various other numbers that are worth going over with the Hawaii. So for example, like your flat count is 6 plus 5, which is awesome. I believe that gets out. Where is our I always forget where the flak is. So yeah, 11 flak is ridiculous. More than enough flak. And again, flak is your main heavy hitter here. It's hard to dodge, especially when defensive A fire consumables just going up. It's hard. I mean, as someone who's played against this thing with hybrid planes and or CV planes, yeah, like this is a ship that I probably want to avoid unless I'm forced to strike it for strategic purposes. But yeah, the AA is very, very quite strong. And again, like I mentioned previously in the video, if you have done a full AA build Hawaii, let me know how that's working for you. Because again, I can only imagine the amount of planes you're shooting down with this thing. Maneuverability, again, here I guess is a balancing point of the ship. Again, we're clocking out at 33.4 knots. Again, with this here, I'm mic flagging up to 34 point something. The turning circle radius is 840 meters, and that rudder shift time is 13.8 seconds. Again, I will showcase my upgrades here in just a little bit to show you I am running prop mod in that 4th slot, because where do I want to be playing this ship? I want to be playing it behind an island. I want to use that island coverage and deny capture points and pushes based upon my strategic island coverage. Now, it is harder to get up to those islands in order to take advantage of them. That's just coming in part due to the bulkiness of the ship plus the detectability of the ship. But again, once you're in those positions, it's really hard to dig this ship out because one, airstrikes that are meant to do that can, I don't want to say easily, but more often than not be shot down by the Hawaii's impressive A suite. DDs are going to have to try to finagle themselves around, obviously not only dodging enemy destroyers and submarines that are going to be protecting them, but also the Hawaii comes with an 8.5 kilometer radar as well, which is good for those situations when you're denying coverage to certain areas, right? Again, going into the coverage of the ship or the concealment of the ship. I already mentioned the stealth. It is starting off at 15.04 base. Going down with the concealment module, which I take in that 5th slot, is going to bring us down to 13.5. And again, slotting your commander on the ship as well is going to get it down to 12.2. I highly recommend doing this. Again, I haven't run a lighthouse build Hawaii. I don't know if you really want to. I'm sure there are people crazy enough to do it out there. Again, for me, I don't think it's really the way to play this ship or set it up, so I'm going to go with the full stealth build, okay? One thing to keep in mind too is detectability after firing main guns in smoke is actually pretty high for a 127mm gun to cruiser at 8.2. So if you're going to play in divisions, or you're going to have your enemy, or sorry, not enemy, allied destroyers smoke up for you, or an Essex drop smoke screen for you, just keep that in mind, that if you start firing, if you get spotted within your smoke, go ahead and counter radar, and you can pretty much see whoever's spotting you, right? So yeah, guys, that is basically the Hawaii in the nutshell. This is, egregiously strong light cruiser that Wargaming has introduced for the Steel Will event here in 2025. If you are lucky enough to have grabbed her, I'm sure you know how fun she is, but hopefully now I can help teach you. I don't want to teach you, it's not really teaching, but showcasing some, basically some tips and tricks on how to play this ship and get the most out of her with positioning and leading the target specifically. And again, if you're trying to learn how to play against this thing, hopefully watching a review like this will give you some ideas, and I'll go over some ideas as well on how to counter the Hawaii in games. Without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and get on into the gameplay. Alright guys, and here we are in battle with the USS Hawaii. This is, like I said, the new Tier 10 light cruiser that Wargaming has ever so graciously gifted upon us here. I'm sure it's made its ways through the balancing department efficiently and effectively, and it's good to go, so send it out. Yeah, so this ship obviously is going to want to find islands. That's what this thing is. This thing is just a farmer for days. And this is going to be my first controversial kind of like comment about the ship. I think this thing's game impact is obviously great, but its only thing that it's going to do is a farmer. It is just a farmer. Even with the 8.5-kilometer radar that this thing gets, I think it's... if you get yourself radared by the Hawaii, either you are out of position or you have pushed into a capture point where the Hawaii happens to have enough coverage to cover it. Like here, for example, like in the B cap, if I were to happen to radar the Lightning, which is in B, like he put himself in that situation, and I'm able to crawl up to the island in order to do that, okay? So that's the first thing that I want to say. I'm not saying this thing doesn't have game impact. Clearly it does. But overall, I think this thing, because of what it does, I think it just burns down ships phenomenally well. And that's the game impact that it has, okay? I think like Des Moines, Worcester, Moskva, Petropavlovsk, I think ships like that honestly are going to have a little bit more game impact than the Hawaii is. This thing was built with one thing in mind, that's just to burn down everything and anything within its path or within its range. That's what it's going to do. And it's just a little bit more of an interactive way to do it, because now you have an F key, which is going to alter your shells and your shell velocity a little bit. That's what it does. Also, earlier on in the video here, you saw the AA going to work on the Ultrex bombs. Like I said, I think you're going to do a really good job. Like it's the bombs are no longer going to be a good way to dig this thing out. You're going to still land maybe one or two. It's just going to happen. But all in all, like, I don't think it's going to be enough of a deterrence to really get the Hawaii from island hugging, okay? So going in more about the consumables about the ship, you have your standard damage control party, you have a heal, you also have your the hydroacoustic search, and you have the surveillance radar. And again, in that I think in that one slot, you can either choose hydroacoustic search or defensive AA as well. So it's up to you what you want to choose. Like I already mentioned in my port analysis, I would highly recommend that you stick with the defensive AA as of right now, because there's a lot of hybrids, a lot of CVs playing. And again, maybe when that dies down, then of course, by all means, probably the hydroacoustic search is going to be a little bit better for you. You are a bulkier ship, and if you want to get forward and position yourself in more advantageous positions, you're going to want to make sure that you don't take enemy torpedoes. Who knows, maybe we'll spot the occasional submarine here and there too, right? What else about the Hawaii is worth mentioning? Yeah, she's not fun to play against. I've been on the receiving end. I think I was in a Slava. Maybe not. I don't remember what ship it was, but I was bow tanking. I wasn't a Slava, my bad. It was some other ship. Forward front. Like, I think it was maybe it was Yamato. I think it was Yamato, and I was pushed a little bit too far ahead into the range of this thing's F key. My God, guys, incredibly frustrating. I'm sure I was raging at my monitor here for a little bit as this was happening. But yeah, this thing is it's cancer. It's absolute cancer to play against. And the best thing you're going to be able to do with this is someone's going to have to supply vision on the Hawaii. As long as the Hawaii is on a capture point, you know, like let's for example, what is this, B cap or a C cap or A cap? I don't know what fucking cap this is, D cap maybe. It's going to be incredibly hard for your destroyers to push forward and contest the capture point without getting just a sea of HE rained upon them. Now, obviously here, I know I'm shooting the mountain, but you would think at some point in time, maybe a single shell or so would land over and hit the Fletcher, and that's kind of what I've been doing. Because every now and then you get one shell to land on the Fletcher, which is good. One shell hit, again, is enough to hopefully get him to run away and not capture the capture point anymore, right? The Hawaii, in my opinion, too, you know, in regards of its overall game design, like I've already mentioned, it's a farmer through and through. And again, I think that's why so many people like this ship in regards of, like, you know, Unicums and stuff like that, is because they can farm high damage games with this ship. The amount of fire is absurd that you're going to be able to get your fire percentage chance, and what you're going to be able to do is just absolutely crazy. That coupled with your tankiness of your hull kind of alleviates a lot of light cruiser issues, so of course it's going to look naturally intriguing to a lot of players. And again, the DPM is just crazy on this thing, and it doesn't have to give up that much. Like usually like Colbert, Smolensk, Austin's massive citadel, 16mm plating, you know, very fragile ships, whereas the Hawaii just solves that issue. It's an Alaska, Puerto Rico style hull. Citadel is basically underwater. 27mm nose. Like it's tanky enough to it doesn't give a fuck basically where it is and who's shooting at it. It can shrug off and has really good survivability. Coupled with that, or mixed with the third most HP on a tier 10 light cruiser, or just cruiser in general, it's crazy, guys. It's absolutely crazy. And also, this is a hilarious moment. Like, you never underestimate the stupidity of enemy players. I knew this Fletcher was going to come around, and I'm like, what is he doing? Why are you doing this? And yeah, we're able to just finish him off there real quickly. I don't know. Like, I guess he was stuck between a rock and a hard place here. I don't really know, but that just that made me chuckle, that moment there, guys. But now we've pushed forward enough where we are completely hidden within this capture point, which is the A capture point. And now we're going to be able to chain off our F keys and be in a very, very good location that is going to be extremely, incredibly hard to dig me out of this location, unless they have vision or I just play this ridiculously wrong and stupid, right? The shell velocity here, I've showcased a little bit of the shell velocity. You've already seen that the shell velocity is not very good when you switch to that F key, but it's just perfect enough to launch those shells over the island and hit the Ultrek, who is playing aircraft carrier rather than actually playing cruiser. Again, not how you play that ship. I really should do a down the line of those ships, potentially the Gutenloos too, because I cannot help but feel like players are completely playing those ships wrong and solely reliant on their airstrikes. Again, if you're a legendary Gutenloo, it's a little bit different, but with the Ultrek and just a normal Gutenloo, I think that is just not how you play the ship at all. Really not maximizing your potential and your ship. So, you're touching on the commander build. You know, I do want to touch on this a little bit. The commander build is pretty self-explanatory. Again, I told you I don't take any AA skills. I'm going and fully invested in the damage output of the Hawaii, which is what I think you should be doing, because it's supposed to be alleviating a massive issue with the Hawaii, which is the damage that it can do. This is definitely a damage over time vessel, but taking the heavy HE, heavy sap, giving me that extra 100 or 200 or whatever shell damage is very nice as well, because it's only going to translate to more damage for me and hopefully a little bit more game impact as well. I don't recommend taking inertia fused high explosive on this ship. I already mentioned why. I don't think this is just a ship that relies solely on doing damage. I think that I think ships like Worcester could potentially get away with that a little bit, but this ship is so reliant on setting fires that I think you'd be actively neutering and doing a disadvantage to yourself if you're taking inertia fused high explosive. So I cannot recommend this enough. Do not take inertia fused high explosive on this ship. But this is the light cruiser that takes that oh god, what is that skill? The fourth captain skill. I always forget what it is. But one that increases your secondary batteries too, but also within someone's standard detectability, you get minus 8% better firing or whatever like that. Definitely take that on the ship. 12.2 is high enough where you can take advantage of that, and it's only going to translate to better DPM and faster firing guns, which again is going to translate to higher fire setting potential and a more damage, which is more game impact for this ship. This is what the ship does. Its game impact comes in the form of being able to be an active visual deterrence for battleships. If we know any, well, not best battleships, but ships in general. If we know anything, ships, especially battleships, hate to take damage. So the more you set them on fire, the more frustrated they're going to be, which is more inclining them to do stupid maneuvers and decisions, which you should be able to take full advantage of in the Hawaii. Now, a big downside to this ship is it actually doesn't have torpedoes, but again, if you were familiar with American light cruisers and how they play, you don't really need them. You can just solely rely on your guns. But if you do push this ship at closer ranges, yes, it has no rebuttal to you, okay? It only has 127mm guns, so the likelihood of it actually sitting on you is slim unless you're using the standard firing mode with armor piercing. Then your shell velocity and penetration isn't terrible at super close ranges, but again, at any meaningful ranges, you're probably not going to be doing much with your armor piercing unless you're aiming for the upper deck, or not upper deck, the upper belt armor, which is where you could go ahead and fuse and penetrate those shells, right? And that's going to translate to, again, good damage for your ship. But again, just looking at the C of HE raining upon these ships is just absolutely crazy, right? And again, the game that I had, this is nothing compared to what I've seen players capable of doing. This just happened to be one of the better games I've actually had in the Bloody Thing, so I wanted to showcase that to you guys. Not really cherry picking at this point, but I will say this, okay? In my time of playing the Hawaii, I have found this ship to be decently challenging, okay? And again, hear what I'm saying. Decently challenging when it comes to dealing, like, positioning yourself in certain areas. I think that the ship is, it's not hard to play, okay? It's pretty self-explanatory. But understanding that you are a light cruiser with kind of like a heavy battle cruiser-ish hull is kind of new for players. They really don't understand it a whole lot. It definitely took me a while to get used to the overall play style of the ship. But now that I've played, a couple games in her now, I'm starting to get a little bit more comfortable with how she's supposed to play or how she's intended to play. So this is going to be hilarious. So, well, not hilarious, but just showcasing you why, and a light cruiser in quotation marks, I'm just not scared of enemy cruisers, especially something like the Otago that has my broadside. I'm going to come around ever so slightly and peek around this island, and the Otago, by all intents and purposes, has my broadside. He's going to fire, I think, with HE first, and eventually he's going to switch to armor piercing. And I'm not afraid. I'm not going to take a sitter from this guy. He does not have the penetration. And again, my Citadel's underwater, so I really don't scare. I could just keep full broadside and get almost all my guns on target and take full advantage of that too, which is super nice. The last thing I want to talk about the Hawaii is because you are an Alaska, Puerto Rico style hull, I do believe you take battleship, flood, and fire damage as well. Don't quote me on that, but I do want to say that is like a last balancing feature that this ship has. So again, under sustained amount of fire, this thing will melt, but you have a lot of HP to make up for that. That's the one thing that I've seen kind of balances her off. Again, I don't know if that's a fact or if that's truth. Just take it with a pinch of salt. But I have noticed that under a sustained amount of fire, this thing doesn't do very well. And you can melt her. You can penetrate her a lot. Again, heavy cruisers especially, and of course, like large caliber HE, like 381s, 406s, that kind of stuff can just basically melt her. And again, hates semi-armor piercing. Semi-armor piercing will eat this thing up and chew this thing apart. So again, if you're in a Colombo, just point and click her because you'll probably do, 10 to 15k to her as well. So anyways, this is the last target for us, basically, which is going to be the Des Moines. And once he goes down, that should be game for us. Oh, and we actually killed the other guy as well. Didn't even realize that. So but yeah, guys, good ship. Hate to play against her, but she is fun. If you happen to get this ship is strong, and hopefully the tips and tricks that I have given you guys and some advice helps you translate to a better gaming experience for you and your Hawaii. So without further ado, I will leave you on the post-battle screen. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned for more, and I will catch you all in the next video. Hopefully it's not spaced out too long, and I can deliver that to you guys at a reasonable time. Anyways, have a good rest of your day, and peace out, guys.